I am so excited to be here with Sarah King, the Chief People and Diversity Officer of Darden, which operates brands we know and love like Olive Garden and Longhorn Steakhouse and Cheddar's and Capitol Grill and Eddie V's. Saying that makes me so happy. We're in Snowmageddon here in Dallas, Texas, and Sarah is somewhere else that sounds a little bit warmer. Sarah, thanks so much for joining us virtually today to talk about enriching the employee journey. I just gave a quick bio. You certainly are an amazing human being, and I've heard nothing but positive things from our friends at Black Box. What's something people would be surprised to learn about Sarah King?
I think the number one thing that people are always surprised about is that I don't have a college degree. I grew up in the University of Life and worked in hospitality since I was 15 years old, which when I came to this country, I realized that that's quite an unusual thing for somebody that's sitting in the C-suite in a public company. So I'm pretty proud of that. The other thing that people might not know about me is I'm pretty impulsive. And what that leads me to is to try a lot of really new, crazy, exciting things. So right now I'm in the middle of learning how to ballroom dance for a charity event in May. And I'm learning how to do the tango.
Wow. What is the charity?
It's called Embrace Families, and it supports people that age out of the foster care system. So very proud to be involved with that.
That's amazing. We're going to need a little video of that to tack on for a later session.
Yeah, we'll see.
No, Sarah, as we're celebrating best practice leaders, Darden and several of your concepts are nominated multiple times. Not only multiple times in terms of the number of years you've been nominated, but also multiple brands nominated for awards. What is the secret to the sauce at being a best practice leader from your perspective?
Well, first of all, we're very grateful to be nominated and very disappointed that Mother Nature beat us to getting to Dallas. So all of us sitting here in Florida are waiting with bated breath. But I think that, we've got 5 brands that are nominated, which I believe is probably the most. And we're super proud. And I think really it all starts with our amazing operators who are out there every day fighting the good fight. But from an organizational perspective, it really comes down to leadership. Leadership, it starts at the top, it flows through the organization. And I think that we do a really good job of making sure that we understand our culture, understand our values, and we have values at a Darden level, but we also have unique values in each of the brands, and making sure that we hire, train, reward, and retain leaders that live and breathe those values every day. And I think we really saw that during the pandemic. So many of the decisions that we made as an organization, we went back to our values. That was a difficult time for everybody. And, we didn't know what the playbook was, but we always grounded ourselves in what are our values that we want to make decisions with. And I think when you do that, it just automatically creates an environment where you put people first. I think that we're very protective of our culture, both at a Darden level, but also in each of our brands. They all have their own unique and very special cultures. And each of the brand presidents and their leadership teams and our head operators in those brands really work hard to make sure that they find and retain the people that bring those values and cultures to life every day.
I love values, culture, and leadership. We know from Black Box's data that the highest factor of correlated success to our restaurant level performance is the leadership in those restaurants. And I know from my work that every business is a reflection of the people at the top. And you can tell that you guys live and lead into your values. When you focus on systems and consistency and data, I'm curious how you innovate in culture. So those things are really strong roots and foundation for your business. But you talked a bit about COVID and you talked about constantly moving forward, and you wouldn't be a best practice leader years in a row without some innovation. And I'm curious what that looks like for you and for your team.
Well, I think, it's a tale of two cities, because I think there was innovation pre-COVID and then there was innovation during COVID. And I think, innovation during COVID was kind of like, necessity is the mother of invention. But I think that took us on a journey where we were able to understand, okay, what were the things that we were able to do really more nimbly during a pandemic, which nobody wants to go through that again. But I think we've learned some lessons about how to create opportunities to put people together to think about how do we ladder up to each brand's unique identity, make sure that we stay focused on the North Star, so to speak, because I think if you try to innovate too much without sort of laddering it up to the brand's North Star, then you just get a lot of ideas and, you might become a jack of all trades and a master of none. So, we have an incredible consumer insights team that supports each of our brands, that helps them think about the brand and the consumer. They work closely with our marketing teams, who are world-class marketing teams, partnering with our operations teams. I mean, it's just such a collaborative environment. And I think because of that, we create opportunities for people to be innovative, but within a framework of our Darden's competitive advantages, and making sure that we don't stray from what we know our competitive advantages are, both as an enterprise, but also for each unique brand. I will say too, I have to hand it to our former CEO, Jean Lee, and Rick Cardenas, our current CEO. They really stood their ground on making sure that we were in the office more than probably a lot of other organizations, because I think we've all realized that having a remote work environment, it can kill innovation. I think innovation is something that happens through collaboration, communication, and sometimes the informal, water cooler talk. So I feel like we've come to a good place where we found that balance, but having our people together to ideate is really, really important to our culture.
Nice. I love that. I was talking to a long-term operator and I said, if you could wave a magic wand, what wand would you wave to improve our business? And he said, getting people to focus. He's like, the human brain is really only capable of juggling 3 to 5 things. And in our business, we try to juggle hundreds. And I thought that was really profound. And I hear that if everything, and you're saying is, if everything's a priority, then nothing is. And you guys grounded yourself, not only in focus, but in the North Star of your brands. And I think that's a really profound statement. I noticed in reviewing some of the research on Darden that you guys reported being well-staffed across locations and brands. And I know people in this room and here in Dallas would probably, give up a loved one to have that experience. And we'd love to learn from you. We'd love to learn what has been the journey for you guys to get to this position of well-staffed in a world where we're missing 500,000 people for our workforce, according to some experts.
I'll start with this. Before the pandemic, our CEO has been known to say many times, there may not be enough people in the US to staff every single restaurant, but there's enough people to staff all of the Darden restaurants. So that was kind of a way of saying no excuses. And so I think that's always been part of our culture, to say we can't always rest on external factors. We have to figure out how to do it. Now, having said that, obviously going through the pandemic and the very quick ramp up of consumers coming back into restaurants caught us off guard. So let me be clear, our journey was not smooth, but we realized really quickly that we needed to take a look at our operating models, which are different by brand, right? We've got everything from casual to bar brands to reservation brands up through fine dining. And so we took a look at our operating models in each of the brands and took a look at our par levels to say, are they still the same as what they were pre-COVID? Because we did make some, menu optimization decisions and leverage technology, behind the scenes. And so we started with that. And then it's unfortunately, it's the old saying, what gets measured gets done. And so it was a call to action for the whole organization. And we started providing a lot of tracking and reporting on not just hiring, but net new hires, because the hiring was not just the issue, the retention was also the issue, which I know everybody in the room has experienced. And so we started tracking net new hires to make sure that for everybody that we were putting in, that we weren't, losing people out of a leaky bucket. And I think once we started tracking net new hires, it changed the focus. Our operations HR managers out in the field deserve medals. They worked so closely with all of our operators, who also deserve medals, as does everybody that's lived through this last few years. And they just set about getting it done. And it was really, really, really tough. The other thing I would say is we also focused on retention, right? So you can hire as many people as you want, but if you're not creating an environment in each of those restaurants where people want to stay, it's a losing battle. So we did a lot of work in partnering with the operators on, what are the things we need to do to retain people. We also took a look at our 90-day turnover. I know that was a big challenge for all operators. So we started to dig in more on what was causing the 90-day turnover. And again, going back to what gets measured gets done, that enabled us to focus on the things that were impacting that 90-day turnover, because we knew if we could keep them in that first 90 days that our retention significantly improved. So, all the credit goes to the operators and the HR teams that really just muscled through this and did a phenomenal job.
I love the leaky bucket analogy, and the collaboration that you're talking about. It is a team sport and it takes everybody on deck to achieve those results. A lot of inspiration in what you said, and thank you for sharing those insights. Sarah, when you're not ballroom dancing and when you're not leading a company of thousands of restaurants and billions of dollars in revenue, you're also the chairwoman-elect of a Women's Food Service Forum, which continuously and relentlessly advocates for women in food service, broader than restaurants, women in all of food service. I'm curious, what are the things that you were talking about within the framework of Women's Food Service Forum and the implications of that for the world at work for restaurants? What can we learn from the research and work y'all are doing at WFF?
A plug for WFF. They have an incredible board of directors that are very passionate about the mission and just an excellent leader at WFF with Therese Gerhardt and her talented team. And so I think there's a real passion for understanding how can we help advance women in the food service industry. So some of the things that we've been talking about recently, we partner with McKinsey for the Women in the Workplace study. And I think it's telling us more of the same around that broken rung. The restaurant industry and the food service industry in general is extremely diverse at an entry level, and then it starts to narrow as you go further up the sort of org chart, if you like. And so it's really about how do we address the issues that are causing that broken rung, which, by the way, have become exacerbated after the pandemic because that impacted women disproportionately more than men. And then we also take an even deeper dive looking at women of color and how do we remove barriers that are helping women of color progress in the food service ecosystem.
Incredible research. Sarah, we could talk all day. Literally, I think I could chat with you all day. I'm so grateful to you for the efforts you put into being with us here in Dallas and for spending this time with us this morning and sharing your wisdom and your brilliance and insights. Thank you for everything you're doing to move the industry forward and being such an incredible partner to the Black Box family. We hope you have a warm day, and we can't wait to see you next year.
I will be there with bells on next year. Thank you, everyone.